for joining us in this incredible panel. We have four agencies in the government that will be sharing with us information of how to find employment with the agency for anywhere from students to individuals that have been veterans or are looking for a second career. So we're really excited. Please, as Raul mentioned, submit your questions through the chat. We will try to get to every one of your questions. And that way you won't forget your question. So don't wait until the panels have finished the presentation, because we are going to hear from all four of them first, and then we'll go to the Q&A. So submit your questions so you don't forget. Specify if the question is for every one of the panelists to answer or is specific to any one of them. So thank you so much. And we'll get started with Charmaine McDaniels. Charmaine is with the Department of Justice, Drug and Enforcement Administration. Charmaine, we'd love to hear from you both about you personally, what got you interested in working for the Department of Justice, specifically the Drug and Enforcement Administration, and then a little bit about the administration. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Charmaine.
Thank you, Rafaela. I appreciate the invitation to come here and speak to you all today. I'm very excited about it. I'm Charmaine McDaniel. I work for Drug Enforcement Administration. I have been there, I usually say all of my life, because it's been over 20 years. But DEA is a very good organization to work for. You can learn a lot and have a lot of different experiences. Matter of fact, I have Luis Burgos. He's a retired DEA special agent in charge, and he can help with the Q&A if you have questions about any of the positions. He has experience with overseas as well. So in terms of DEA, you can, next slide. In terms of DEA, I'm gonna tell you all about it. Most people think of DEA initially as special agents, but we are more than special agents. We have diversion investigators. Diversion investigators, their position is similar to agents. They build cases, but they don't carry a gun. Diversion investigators, they investigate hospitals, doctors, pharmacies. So when you hear about a pharmacy or a doctor being taken down, that's probably a diversion investigator's case. Intel analysts, they are the ones who give the agents more information about their cases, like what is the dog's name? Who do they talk to every day? You know, things like that, where they traveled, just that in-depth research type of information. They help the agents build their cases, and I used to call it the brains of the case, but Luis will say, no, not the brains of the case. There's also forensic scientists. So I know there's some people on here that are involved in STEM. So DEA has forensic scientists, we have chemists, we have fingerprint specialists. We actually have a whole office pertaining to chemistry and science and forensics. We also have linguists. There's the professional and administrative portion. I am a EEO program manager, so I'm part of the professional administrative portion. And next slide. And so I'll tell you a little bit about the organization, more about DEA. We're the only single mission agency in law enforcement that deals with drugs. That's really all that we do is drugs. We identify targets, we investigate and arrest, you know, traffickers. That is our thing. Most of our positions are special agent positions. We have over 9,000 employees, but half of those, over 4,000 of them, are special agents. Next slide. And our special agents, when you become a special agent, you develop cases, you conduct surveillance. So when you see those spy movies or those different types of things that they do on investigative shows, a lot of times, well, I should say some of that stuff is real, some of it's not. We do make arrests, we do make seizures, we do a lot of raids, search warrants. Report writing, so English is important. Also testifying in court, learning how to speak in public, that's important. Some people ask, well, my kids say all the time, why do we need this math? Well, you deal with math as well. There's such thing as money laundering. If drugs are involved, some type of money laundering is involved too. So you're involved in all types of things. So yes, you need math. You can live and work in foreign countries. So if you know a different language, that's a great tool to have. The experts of anything drug related. For a special agent, a bachelor's degree is preferred, but not required. So if you have some type of work experience, a background in law enforcement, that could be a big plus for you. Next slide. So to tell you more about myself and what I do, I am the Black Affairs Asian American and Hispanic Employment Program Manager. And the things that I do are agency-wide. It impacts the agency. The way that I describe my job is I make sure that we hire, promote, and train minorities and people with disabilities. So I track that underrepresentation of different minorities, and I make sure that we have what we need in the agency. Next slide. And on top of the diversion investigators and the intelligence research specialists, we need fiscal specialists, we need attorneys, we need staff assistants, we need secretaries. Can I keep going? So there's any type of degree that you have, we can use it. It doesn't matter. As you saw, we have forensics. We have a statistician. If you like statistics, statisticians is a great position for you. There are a lot of different things that you can apply for within DEA. A lot of people don't think of DEA because they think of special agents, but we're more than that. Next slide, please. To apply for DEA, most of our jobs are on USA Jobs. If you're interested, some of these positions are DEA only. So I tell people, if you're interested, test out the waters in a position, become a secretary or an intern, see what you think about that agency. And once you're in, you can apply from within for those jobs that are only for the employees in the agency. And the most important thing is stay in school. If you stay in school, you'll stay off the drugs. Smoking and drinking and skipping school is not what you need to do. Staying in school, staying off drugs, keeping yourself proper, take care of your credit even. Those are things that you need to do as you're getting ready to go into the employment world. Next slide. So if we can keep you off of drugs and we can keep you, let me rephrase that. If we keep you off of drugs in your teenage years, then you're more than likely not to use them in your adult years. So thank you for this time. I hope I've answered some of your questions, but please feel free to let me know if you have more.
Thank you, Charmaine. That is excellent and great advice for our students to remember that, because that's critical and very important. Stay out of trouble. But thank you so much. We will hold all of the questions for Charmaine till the end. And I think it's really important because I think some of the comments you made, what they see on TV and what really happens are possibly two different stories. So we hopefully will have time for some of those Q&A. With us next is Marisela Rosales. Marisela is with the U.S. Department of Labor. And what's also interesting for these agencies that they could be located in D.C. or they could be located in other parts of the country. Marisela actually comes and joins us from Texas. So Marisela, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, thank you very much. My name is Marisela Rosales. And yes, I am in the land of the snowdemic in Texas, where it has been snowing and having ice like we've never seen before. We didn't know what to do in Texas. So it is a pleasure, and I wanted to say that thank you to Seth for the invitation, for allowing me to share a few minutes of information that we hope that someone that's listening will find helpful. Next slide. Actually, before I go into the mission, I did want to tell you that my journey with the federal government actually began in 1988. And if someone always says, that time goes by fast, it really does, because I cannot believe that I started to work in 1988. But I've also learned some hard lessons along the way. And that's because I didn't realize when I started in 1988 with the Department of Commerce of how important it was to have a continuity of service, because I worked during not one, not two, but 3 decennial censuses. Every 10 years there's a census. And so I started my federal career with the Department of Commerce, working with the Census Bureau, and I worked those 3 censuses, but I did not have a continuity of service. So definitely it's very important. I'm hoping to share some information that, that you may not know of the importance of it until much later on, and you realize some of the things that you could have done differently. Originally, I am from a place called the Land of Eden, Texas, population 1,230. And that is where I grew up. I grew up in West Texas, that is close to San Angelo. Eden, Texas is very small, and I never dreamed when I was growing up as a first generation Mexican-American, Mexico-Americana, that I would get to experience the things that I've experienced. I've always enjoyed talking with people and meeting people. And so it led me through the years. I've had different experiences. And in 2010, I joined the Department of Labor. I work in recruitment, and I work as a student and veteran program manager. So all of the things that I experienced up until the time that I joined DOL has had to do with people, people's stories, employment, work, assisting and serving the public. So, which leads me to the mission of the Department of Labor, to foster, promote, and develop the welfare of the wage earners, job seekers, and retirees of the United States, improve working conditions, advance opportunities for profitable employment, and assure work-related benefits and rights. When I was putting this information together for today, it reminded me that it really is very much in alignment with SER's mission. And so we definitely at the Department of Labor work and engage those that are looking for work, that are employed, and things that improving the workplace environment. And then once you leave employment and are about to retire, then we engage with the retirees of the workforce in the United States. So it involves the full gamut. And as such, it's very much a privilege to me to be able to serve in the capacity that I do. The Department of Labor is a department, and this slide right here kind of shows you the organizational structure. People don't really realize of how many sub-agencies there are, within the Department of Labor. There's approximately 35 sub-agencies. And if you are not too familiar with the various agencies, some of them that most people are familiar with is, for example, the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Do you know that they are the people that collect the information in order to come up with a reporting out on the Consumer Price Index? And so the Mine Safety and Health Administration is another agency. The Office of Federal Contract Compliance Program is another, otherwise known as OFCCP. And so an Occupational Safety and Health Administration, and on and on and on. 35 sub-agencies, a lot of opportunities for people that are, looking for a path into federal employment. There is opportunities there for you with the various agencies. Next slide. I thought I'd share some of the types of job opportunities with the Department of Labor. because they're varied, just like the sub-agencies that I just kind of mentioned. And I only really touched the tip of the iceberg because there's so many. But some of the types of opportunities that are available with the Department of Labor are statisticians, civil engineers, architects, program analysts, lawyers and attorneys, contracts compliance officers, industrial hygienists. Information technology is probably at the top right now. There's a lot of things going on with computers and IT technology and cybersecurity, including at the Department of Labor, and definitely human resources. So it's a very broad spectrum of types of opportunities. And so this is something that you may want to consider in your search for federal employment, is to definitely look and consider and see if this is something that would be of interest. The skill sets that are in demand in relation to the job opportunities are exactly go hand in hand, because those that have computer backgrounds, IT technology, program and project managers. For example, if somebody is a seasoned person, a military spouse, they have been involved with projects and project management in the different positions that they've had with the military. And so that's something that can be considered, because you have experience in that arena. Legal and research is another area, in medical field backgrounds, and safety and health experience is also helpful, for sure, in the various positions that I just named in the previous slide. And those that have administrative experience, office management experience, human resource experience, all of those are skill sets. And I did note here that this is something that if you're a student and you're listening, it's something that some of these positions are set aside for our Pathways program through the Department of Labor, which is set aside for those students. Now, students can be either those that have followed the traditional trajectory of high school and then college, or those that have come back to school after returning from the military or being a homemaker for a number of years. So it can either be education or education and experience. So there's a variety of ways and pathways into the federal employment workforce. And these are just some of the skill sets that we were looking for. Next slide. The hiring paths. The hiring paths are basically just exactly the roadways, the entryways in which to join federal employment. And so the various paths include those that are open to the public, those that are already in federal employment but are looking to change career fields within the federal government. Also for our veterans, our military spouses, our National Guard and Reserve members, this is also a pathway that may be applicable to you. Another large program within the Department of Labor is the Pathways program. There are pathways within this program for interns, meaning the students that are still in school, that are currently in school, for those that are recently graduated within the last 2 years. And within that category, if you're particularly in COVID right now, and so there's so many people that are working and going to school from home, if you're in your last semester and you're going to graduate at the end of this semester, this would be applicable to you as a recent graduate category. This is a category that you would be able to apply and be eligible to apply under. And then the last is, of course, the Presidential Management Fellows Program. It's a leadership development program. And so we have the information that you may want to know about, on USA Jobs and on the links that or on the position announcements that are offering that type of opportunity. We also have opportunities for people with disabilities, otherwise known, and you may know this category as Schedule A. So we definitely are welcoming for those people that have a disability and that are looking for federal employment, this is a place that you may want to consider. And then certainly Peace Corps and AmeriCorps are returning members. A lot of the Peace Corps members and AmeriCorps members are returning, and therefore they're looking for employment. And so it's a special hiring path authority that we are able to hire those that have provided service to our country and are looking for federal employment here within the states. All vacancy announcements with the Department of Labor and the complete list of the hiring, the entryways, the pathways for employment are on the USA Jobs platform. And I've listed the link there, but definitely it's www.usajobs.gov. So we welcome those that are interested to please go onto the website and look for opportunities. There is what link to for you to be able to pull up and search for the full list of jobs with the Department of Labor. There's my contact name and information. I thank you again for joining us today. It really has been a privilege to join you, and I hope to hear from you soon. Thank you.
Marisela, thank you so much for that wonderful presentation. And you mentioned that the Department of Labor and SARE are really kind of very much able to work together in some of these projects. And I was listening to you and I thought, yeah, you're right. We're very much interested in provide services for veterans, for students. We work with students with disability. So it was like every one of those groups that you had, I'm like, yep, that matches. So I'm really excited that we're working together, and I know we're going to continue working together. So thank you for your presentation, and we'll look forward to all of the questions our viewers will have. Now we move over to Dr. Howard Caro Lopez, and he's with the U.S. Department of Transportation. So Howard, I'll turn it over to you.
As Rafaela mentioned, I am an employee at the U.S. Department of Transportation, which is an organization of approximately 54,000 employees, making it one of the largest cabinet level agencies in federal government. Much like the Department of Labor, we have a similar structure in that our organization is comprised of a significant number of smaller sub-agencies, 10 to be specific, and each of those focus specifically on different aspects or what we call transportation modes. So anything from aviation to public transit to highways and roads to maritime vessel transportation, motor carriers and trucks and over-the-road buses, railroads, et cetera. So suffice to say, our organization has a pretty wide scope of work when it comes to dealing with anything related to infrastructure within the United States. And with that comes the fact that we, like many of these larger organizations, do also have presence in most, if not every single state within the country, as well as within many of our U.S. territories, for any of those who may be tuning in from places like Puerto Rico, for example, which is where I'm originally from. So what I wanted to talk about a little bit more, I will spend some time also talking a little bit more about some of the different types of opportunities that exist within DOT, only because I think there's an assumption that, our organization is primarily made up of air traffic controllers, which we employ, as well as engineers, but there's a lot more to our organization than just that. But I'll get to that in a couple of minutes. What I wanted to also my trajectory, because I know in talking to Rafaela and Raul about this event, I know that there are a good number of you who may be listening in who are also looking for a second career at this point. You've done your time either in one particular field and you're looking to federal employment as a potential second career, which is sort of what my story has been as well. And can we go to the next slide, please? There we go. Thank you. So case, this is my second career, so to speak. I actually spent a number of years working in higher education as a university professor and a researcher. And whereas now, about 6 years ago, I made the transition from being in that higher education space to being a researcher and a civil rights professional and EEO professional, much like my colleague Charmaine talked about earlier. We have very similar roles at DOD. And what prompted that was sort of my interest in being able to use some of my transferable skills in a public service setting, because that's always something that I've been very passionate about, is being able to serve the public in some way and really make our country, provide as many opportunities for people across our country. And so when I learned about the opportunities at the Department of Transportation, I quickly realized that not only is infrastructure one of those important ways in which we help serve the general public by providing access to jobs, access to education, access to healthcare, access to and from wherever people need to go to get all of those essential services. But it's also a part of my larger vocation to help, as our government really is responsive to each and every member of the public, regardless of who they are and where they come from. And so I made the decision, like I said, back in 2015 to really go from working in an education space to being a public servant. And it was not an easy transition, I will confess, but what I did learn a couple of things once I was able to do that I was hoping to share with all of you as you continue to consider a career. And these are some thoughts that apply not just to federal government, but also those of you who are maybe approaching the job market or are thinking or even starting to think about what they want to do once they graduate from college, or once they're ready to go into the workforce. So there really, I think, from my perspective, three things that I would impart that were important from my perspective in terms of being able to make that transition into securing a job within the federal government. One is networking. And I'm sure many of you, may already be doing this. And if not, I'm certainly you've started to hear about the importance of networking as a way to secure employment in a particular field. And that's certainly true when it comes to federal government. Not so much in terms of learning about opportunities or sort of getting the foot in the door, because there is a competitive hiring process, as some of the other presenters have discussed, but more about really using that as an opportunity to educate yourself about what sorts of career options exist based on where you are at this particular point in your life or in your career. And in my case, when I made the decision that I wanted to pursue a career in federal government, I turned to people who were in my field within higher education who had already done something similar and talked to them about how they made that switch, right? What is it that they needed to do in order to make that happen? Whether it was understanding what they wanted to do specifically based on their experience and their education, whether it was learning about how to navigate the application process, which sometimes can be a little complicated if you're not familiar with it. And we can certainly talk about that in the Q&A session if you have questions about that particular aspect. Or just learning, how to find a job wherever you live. And in my case, living in Washington, D.C. made that a little bit easier. I know that for other colleagues of mine who made that switch from higher education to federal government, they really had to do their homework and talk to other people to learn about what opportunities may have existed in their area, since they did not live in the Washington, D.C. area. So that is a big part of it. Related to that is also, knowing what your skills are. And I think especially for those of you who have already had a first career and are looking for a second career, the key thing that's going to help, that I think is going to help you going forward, is really taking the time to identify what those transferable skills or competencies that you currently have are, so that you can match that up with different federal job opportunities. Like I said, in my case, as someone who was a university professor and had a background as a data scientist and a social scientist, my experience, I learned that my experience with statistics, my experience doing research and writing, for example, were skills that were very useful in the field that I am and in the position that I have right now, which involves a lot of research and writing, And also you working with statistics, whether it's looking at statistics about the general population or whether it's looking at statistics about our workforce and figuring out how we can make our workforce more diverse and do better in terms of retaining our employees within our organization. I would certainly stress taking the time to really sit down and map out what those skills are for you. And even for those of you who are still students and getting ready to jump into the workforce, start thinking about the things that you have learned within your formal education at this point and see how they might be useful in different skills. You would be surprised that how many of those skills really do translate to a lot of different occupations or that are available within federal government service. Then the last piece of advice I would give just in terms of my own journey will make from making that transition to being a federal employee is doing your homework, right? And certainly if you're a student, you already know what that means. And even for those of you who are looking into a separate career or looking to switch careers, the big part of it is, a big part of having that success and making that transition is understanding, if you have an organization or even a field or an occupation in mind, study what the agencies or the organizations that you might be interested in are. You'd be surprised to learn that there are different opportunities. And I'll give you a good example. Just yesterday, I was actually speaking with a student from Los Angeles, California, and who is interested in foreign policy work or foreign affairs work, which is what he's studying in college right now. And I actually mentioned to them, he was looking at sort of the obvious kinds of federal agencies, right? Like the State Department or the CIA, where there's a lot of that sort of work. But I also mentioned them, but I also made him aware of the fact that even in Department of Transportation, we have a number of occupations that specifically deal with issues, since transportation is not just a national issue, but it's also an international issue. When you think about things like shipping, or you think about, for example, there's a lot of that involves foreign affairs or international relations. And so that's the sort of thing that I was encouraging this young student to think about, is that sometimes places you wouldn't assume or organizations that you wouldn't assume do the type of work that you're interested or are involved in the field that you're studying, they may actually have those positions. So do take the time to study what organizations have in the structure, that there are bigger opportunities or broader opportunities than what one might normally think. Next slide, please. So to that point, in terms of what I have observed in my time as an employee of DOT. Oh, can we go back one slide, please? I apologize. There we go. Thank you. So in terms of how the Department of Transportation is structured, the occupations that you see listed here are what we call the major occupations within the organization. And I won't sort of go through the list, but I'll just point out a few things. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, our agency is the primary employer, is the sole employer, in fact, for all of the air traffic controllers throughout the entire country. And one thing I will point out with respect to that is that it is an occupation that does not require a university degree. So for those of you who may be looking for alternatives that do not involve a university degree, that is to look at as a possible opportunity. We do have obviously a lot of engineers that go into both aviation and highway building and highway safety and things of that nature. We also do a lot of analysts, as I mentioned before. I am an analyst in the realm of civil rights, but for people who are interested in doing research, writing, statistics, that sort of thing, and especially those of you who might be interested in things like data analysis, there are a lot of opportunities in our agency for that sort of work as well. We do a lot of safety work and safety inspection as well. So for those of you who may be interested in or have experience in that field at state level, that is an opportunity for you as well. But however, and if we could go back to the next slide, please. There are also a lot of other at our agency that we oftentimes people may not often associate with with our agency, right? We have a lot of economists, financial analysts, lots of attorneys, IT, which is similar to what Labor said, human resources professionals, of course. And as I mentioned earlier in my little anecdote, foreign affairs specialists. So again, to my point, we are a large organization. We do have plenty of opportunities. I think we can sort of skip this slide a little bit because I think this is sort of reiterating what Charmaine and Maricela mentioned earlier in terms of the ways you can get your foot in the door. And certainly in the QA, we can talk a little bit about this. And then I just wanted to be, in closing, in my initial remarks, share a couple of other additional resources specific to my agency, as well as things that are more broader to federal government employee opportunities. And I also will make a quick plug for the other organization I represent, which is the National Council of Hispanic Employment Program Managers, which our mission is to help support efforts to increase the employment of Hispanics in public service. We post a lot of information on career opportunities and how to get a federal job. So please also feel free to visit our website to get some additional information. And please check our website if you're interested in DOT careers. And this applies, I think, as well for other federal agencies. It's always good to check the agency website to see what kinds of career opportunities may be there, because sometimes those may be easier to find there than going through the traditional USA job site. Thank you.
Howard, thank you so much for that presentation. And you're right, there's lots of venues of how you can start within an agency. I know you mentioned, so many of us think of air traffic controllers. I happen to think about it because I like airplanes, and then you travel, so you automatically think of that. But also the fact that you can go through the military and become an air traffic controller, but you can go through the university and still become an air traffic controller. So there are different paths for you to pursue the career that you want to do. So don't think that there's one way for you to do that. So thank you for that presentation. And then we're going to go to our last presenter. And the only reason why we're going in this order is because we went on the order of the agencies, the name of the agency. So we go to Brandy Perez. And Brandy, we're excited to hear a little bit about you, but also the Department of Treasury. Are they the ones that deal with the money?
Oh my gosh. Yes, we have the money. So thank you, sir, for inviting me and inviting us to your event today. I'm really excited that we're all here and we're showcasing our agencies and talking about how you can come and work with us in the federal government. So my name is Brandy Perez. Brandy Perez. Soy de Puerto Rico. So I have been 19 years, just like Howard, I have been 19 years in the government, and I was recruited back in Puerto Rico back in 2002. It's been a great career. I have been almost everywhere in the government, some still missing some agencies, but Treasury, I think it's gonna stay. I'm gonna stay here at home. It's a little bit more about my journey. So I have a bachelor in human resources management and a degree and master degrees in labor relations. And I decided that I didn't want to stay in Puerto Rico. I had a bigger vision. I was dreaming of, I don't know, for whatever reason, working with State Department, living in Alexandria, Virginia, a place I had never been to before. Virginia, like, who has, like, I never had family in Virginia, but I had it in my mind. I had a goal. So I started in 2002, and in 2008, I was working with Department of State. And then I moved to Alexandria, Virginia. So that speaks to when you set your mind to something, you are gonna achieve it. So it took me over 1,000 tries to get into the federal government, sending my resume, getting rejected. I couldn't figure out what I was doing wrong. There's nothing wrong. It's just that there's always a lot of competition. So my suggestion, my advice to you is never give up, especially when trying to come into the government. I like it. I think I'm going to retire from here, especially Treasury. And it's been a great journey. It's been a great journey. I have learned in every agency I have been to as a human resources specialist, I have learned something new. And I have can continue growing my skill sets, developing myself, networking. Now working with Sarah, working with the council. There's always room for improving yourself. So with that being said, that's about me. So let's talk about a little bit about Treasury and what we do. It's not all about the money. Thank you, Raul. A little bit about Treasury. So we were established by Congress in 1789 to manage the government's revenue. Yes, the money. The main Treasury building is located at 15 Pennsylvania Avenue and is the oldest executive building, and it smells like that. I work 2 blocks away and I always have to literally walk across my building to the Treasury building by the White House, because we're by the White House and we have the Secret Service over there all the time checking us. And it's amazing. You can see the architecture. So it's really cool building. Next page, please. Next slide. So our new secretary is Miss Janet L Yellen, and I'm really excited. She's the first woman that was selected to serve as secretary. So she was sworn in as the 78th Secretary of Treasury in January 26th of this year. And she has been the chair of the White House Council of Economic Advisors. She has been the Federal Reserve working as chair, and now our chair. So Ms. Yellen has a lot of experience. So we're really excited to have her as our boss. Next slide, please. Our mission is to maintain a strong economy and create economic and job opportunities. So by promoting the conditions that enable economic growth, right? And also, not only that, and I did not know that until I started working at Treasury, we are there also to strengthen the national security by combating threats and protecting the integrity of the financial system. What does this mean? I don't know if all of you heard a couple of months ago that Treasury and a couple of other agencies were hacked, and they kind of tried to shut down the money-making agencies. So yes, so Treasury is part of that group of agencies that is in charge of trying to avoid those hacking situations, because if they shut our money-making system, there goes the United States. So being part of Treasury, we have a lot of offices that deal with the financial cybersecurity attacks, and it's really cool job. And the last one is manage the US government finances and resources effectively. Next slide, please. So Treasury is not only one building. Treasury, we have 10 organizations or bureaus, basically. And as you see the list, they're listed there. We have IRS, one of the most important that we have, because they are creating the revenue. We also have the US Mint. US Mint is creating the dollars. Enforcing the tobacco taxes, we have Alcohol and Tobacco Tax and Trade Bureau. Engraving and printing also prints money and coins. And something really important, if you ever come to the DC area, you are welcome to come and tour the facilities. You can tour Treasury headquarters, and you can tour also the Bureau of Engraving and Printing. As you see, there's a big list there of the bureaus that we have currently. Next slide, please. Some positions that we have in Treasury. So let's talk about positions. Not all the positions that we have are making dollars. No, we don't have IRS people all the time. We don't have investigators all the time. We have a source, like a good pool of different positions, because every bureau, every subcomponent of Treasury has a really important part of the whole picture, right? So example, if you go, can we go back to the previous slide, please? Thank you, Raul. Financial Crime and Enforcement Network, FinCEN. That's basically most of what they do. They're trying to avoid the hacking. They're trying to avoid other countries, you know, to come and abuse us in the United States, because you would be surprised to know that there's a lot of threats that are coming in and attacking us in the States. And but we don't talk about that. There's nothing in the news about that, like especially Russia, especially China, like North Korea, hacking us all the time, like trying to get all the information regarding our money. And FinCEN, or Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, is one of the agencies that manage this part. Let's move to the next slide. So what kind of jobs do we have overall in all Treasury-wide? We have policy advisors. I do want to mention that right now, with this coronavirus situation and a lot of people losing their jobs, we in Treasury are going crazy. It's been really hectic because we're trying to provide some relief for all the people that have lost their job, they're about to lose their homes, or they cannot pay the rental programs or the rent. So we have all these programs that we're developing in Treasury right now to assist our United States citizens to kind of get back on track. So I feel at this moment in my life, I feel really grateful that I am learning about this, because if I wouldn't be maybe back home in Puerto Rico, or I wouldn't be in the private sector, I would not be learning so much of everything that is going through. And as a human resources business partner for Treasury right now, one of my offices is domestic finance, and they're the ones in charge of managing the programs for the COVID relief. So I am learning a lot. And so they're developing policies. We have the intelligence team that is trying to research all the documents to see if, when we're loaning another country and they're trying to pay us back, is this the right agreement? And there's like underlinings on it. We have security specialists, we have IT project managers, sanctions investigators. If another country doesn't pay us, we're gonna send an investigator to make sure you pay us. So as you can see, there's a big list of positions available for anybody that's interested. Some of them do require more skill set than others, but something I'm gonna tell you always is don't give up, keep persevering. And the way we recruit in the government is based on skill sets and based on education. So continue, honestly, continue networking, continue applying to the jobs in USA Jobs, because all the government across the board, we use www.usajobs.gov to recruit our people. And as Marisela mentioned, we do have options for you to come and work with us. If you're a student, we have the pathways. If you're a vet, we have vet opportunities for you, direct hire, especially in IT. If you have those cyber experience skills and you're a vet, you have an open door. We have the Peace Corps. There's many options and ways to come here to the government. So we hope that you reach out to us or reach out to Sir, and just try it. Don't give up. You can make it and come work with us in the federal government. I hope this presentation has been really helpful, and I'm really excited to see you soon.
Thank you, Brandy. And you gave a message that I think, besides all the wonderful information, the fact that perseverance, don't give up. And we hear that over and over with our wonderful speakers. So hopefully the students, everyone joining us remembers that. So now we're gonna go, because we don't have a lot of time and we are getting some really exciting questions. I know, Charmaine, you have a question, so we'd like to have you, it's specifically to you, DEA, and then we'll have one for you, Brenda, that's also specific to you. So Charmaine?
Yes, someone sent a question saying, let me see, does DEA investigate crime? And are we the first on the scene? Yes, DEA investigates crime. Usually our cases are built from someone who has committed a crime. And that just begins the cycle of a DEA investigation. We are usually not the first on a scene. We're usually called to the scene because drugs or something related to drugs is on the scene. Unless it is us that's doing a raid, we are the first to do the raid and be on the scene.
Thank you, Charmaine, for that. Brandy, for you, the question is, what do you do with your own money? And then how long is the paper money in circulation? And I guess if you know, how long is the money in general in circulation?
That's a great question. So usually we keep the money 20 years in circulation. And what we do is we burn it. So it gets shredded and burned once the money gets worn out, and we start printing more money.
I was going to say the first time I went to DC, I think I visited the buildings you mentioned. And I remember there was a little bag with money that I think they shred in tiny, tiny, tiny pieces, I guess, so we can't put it back together. And we're able to purchase that. So I think if you haven't done that, that was kind of a neat thing. And I bought that for my 2 children, so that way they could have that little old money on there. So thank you for that. Charmaine, there's another question for you. They wanted to know if all the jobs for the DEA are in Virginia.
No, DEA is a global agency. We have jobs all over the country. I started off at DEA in St. Louis, St. Louis, Missouri, and transferred to headquarters. Luis has worked in China and Hong Kong and
Taiwan, Mongolia.
yeah, so we are global. You can work in Africa, Spain. I mean, anywhere you want to work, especially if we even teach you the language. If you don't know the language, but you have an interest, they teach you the language, the culture. Yes, we are global. We are all over the world.
Thank you so much. And Luis, thank you for joining us as well, so you can share more information. I will make a comment. Someone saying, can we give their information for Marisela to share with them? They apparently will want to follow up with you. We will make this available probably within a week on SARE's YouTube, so you'll be able to also see their information from their presentation. So we encourage you to go back and look at that as well. The other thing that they have, and they're really sending a bunch of questions for DEA, because I guess it's exciting, and we don't often get a chance to ask you all kinds of questions, but they want to know what port of entry is most notorious for drug trafficking.
That's a good question.
Yeah, there are quite a few. It depends on what the drugs are as well, but there are quite a few. So I'm not going to tell you that one is more important than another, because they're all equally important. Certainly, some that are closer to our southern border, for example, are quite busy. Some that are up in this area, up in Baltimore, for example, are quite busy. So yeah, there's quite a few.
Yeah, I would think so. And I would also think there's some times of the year that some are more busy than others. So you never know what's happening. You just stay busy. And I tell people that you stay employed because you're busy,
Exactly.
kind of keeping track and monitoring all those ports. So thank you for that. I have a comment, and it says, thank you for the awesome presentation and taking the time for sharing this great information. So to all of you, thank you for doing that. And I'll go ahead and ask this question to Brandy. Brandy, you mentioned, again, and several of you mentioned that there's an opportunity for you to come as a student, as a student intern, veteran, and so forth. Are any of the agencies, or at least specifically in your agency, do you all provide any scholarships for students that are in college, or a co-op where they can come and work and still go to school to facilitate their education a little bit?
That's a great question. So some agencies, we do provide not scholarships, but we do. I know, for example, there's a cyber corps. I want to say maybe it's a scholarship because you're going into school for cyber education, and then at the same time they're going to be placing you in the government working for whatever agency, and it's free for the applicants, right? All you have to do is being in school, preparing yourself for that technical expertise, and then participating and competing with other students regarding these scholarships. So I know of that one, a Cyber Corps scholarship. Is managed by OPM. I need to find information. I can provide that to you. Some agencies do provide not scholarship, but internships, paid internships. Like Pathways is a paid internship. Most of the time, we have the two versions. We have the non-paid and the paid. And right now, like internships run from spring. There's a session in spring, there's a session in summer, and there's a session in fall. So depending on where you fall in your education, you can take part of the pathways. Even recent graduates, we have the recent graduates pathway program. So if you just finished college 2 years ago, up to 2 years ago, you can be competing with others to get a permanent position in the government. It's a great entryway that I didn't have back when I started. So I always try to push students when I do workshops, resume workshops with the council. I try to push students to, take advantage of those opportunities that I didn't have, that we didn't have. There's so many opportunities out there right now.
Thank you for that. We are almost running out of time. So what I would like to do is offer each one of you a few minutes to kind of share any last minute thoughts with all of our viewers. And I will ask you, there's another question that says, do all agencies have global positions? Are they just nationwide or globally? So maybe during your last minute comments, you can tell them if some of your positions are globally. And so we'll start in the order that we're presenting. Charmaine and Luis, if you guys want to share any last minute comments.
Well, one last minute comment is, as all the panelists have said, whatever you do, don't give up. Pursue. Also, if you know a second language or want to learn a second language, that would be very beneficial. Since we're talking about global jobs, that'll be very beneficial in your career through life. Luis knows several languages, Chinese, Spanish, so it'll be very beneficial. Use those skills to your advantage.
They'll come in handy. For example, I established DEA's first office in China, for example, and I did that. One of the reasons I was selected for that is because I spoke the language already. So it's a great skill to have. Whatever language you study, whether it's Spanish or Swahili or anything in between, it's a great skill to have.
Thank you, Luis. I think we often tell all of our viewers, it's great when you have a second language. We're proud of that fact and mention it. So thank you both for sharing that. Marisela, we'd like to have you make some comments.
Well, thank you very much. Again, I want to thank Seth for inviting me today. And my last comment is, again, I agree with the other panelists, is don't give up. It does take more than one time, and become an expert at navigating through the USA Jobs website. The Department of Labor does have the Bureau of International Labor Affairs. So we too, incredibly, do have opportunities for work outside of the continental United States. Thank you very much for having me, and I welcome questions after today.
Thank you. Howard, and right after Howard, we'll go to Brandy.
Okay, great. Thank you again. And I want to thank Sarah for this opportunity, and thank all of you for taking the time to tune in today. Again, I will echo what the other panelists have said. Sometimes you got to put your work in to get the opportunities, but the opportunities are there. Add that now is a great time to think about public service, especially since we are very much looking for a new generation of people in the labor force to join federal service. You know, it's a transitional period where we have a lot of older federal servants who are now looking to retirement. So the time is right for you to, if you're thinking about it, to do it. To pursue, you know, as I mentioned before, our agency, even though we are mostly nationally in terms of scope of work, there are opportunities for those of you who are interested in doing, you know, transportation related types of work that involve an international focus, and you do get to travel. So there's a benefit to that as well. For those of you who are looking for that opportunity to see the world, we definitely can facilitate that. Again, you know, we really appreciate this opportunity. Definitely keep an eye out on USA Jobs. Keep out also as a last note, I would just say, at least in our agency, we are oftentimes doing outreach and recruitment activities in different parts of the country. And now, given the circumstances, more virtually. Definitely be on the lookout with those types of events come around, or whether it's virtually or in your community, and definitely go to those, because those are opportunities for you. If you're a veteran, if you're a person with a disability, if you're a returning Peace Corps volunteer, to actually pursue a job opportunity right there on the spot. So definitely take advantage of those opportunities as they present themselves.
Thank you. Brandy?
Well, I want to say that here in the government, in federal government, we're trying to mimic what our citizens look like. So we're always recruiting, we're trying to diversify our workforce. So as we mentioned, do not give up. Take the opportunities when you see them, always network. It's really important that if you see something that you think you can apply for it, go for it. Reach out to us. Maybe we can do a resume workshop and we can help you navigate, through the USA Jobs and what your resume needs to look like for applying for our jobs. And regarding the question if our positions are global or nationwide, we have it all. You can be State Department working in Iraq. You can be in Treasury working in Rome, or I don't know, Japan, with Treasury, because I have those international economists that are always traveling. So you know what? Just put yourself out there. It took me 1,000 times to get in, and I am in. It's been 20 years and I love it. So please come work with us.
Randy, thank you so much. And once you visit the Gov Jobs website, it actually tells you if that position is available just in DC, just in Texas, global. It'll tell you where those positions are available. So please feel free to go and do that. And again, don't give up. We have one last comment saying that thank you to all our panelists, and bless you for sharing this wonderful information with all of our audience. So again, thank you very much for joining us. Keep doing what you do. Our community needs it very much.